Political change in Britain of the 60s and 70s also inspired one of the most opinionated characters ever seen in a British sitcom. No one was quite prepared for the force of nature that was Alf Garnett.
Johnny Spate said to me one day, because I was his agent as well, I want to write a series about a family where the father keeps arguing with the son-in-law. So I said that to the BBC and they said, oh, we'll do that then.
The series addressed political issues at a difficult time in British society. As a result of post-war government policy, the number of migrants to Britain rose in the 50s and 60s, and with mass immigration came the rise of racial prejudice, a subject which was directly addressed in the show.
Look what's happening to your National Health Service, see?
In Till Death Us Do Part, Conservative Alf Garnett was constantly at war with his more progressive and socially liberal daughter, Rita, and his son-in-law, Mike.
You're up £100 million in 1 year across your health service. 100 million increase on it, isn't it? So that's all your bloody foreigners, isn't it? And all the antibiotics for all their new diseases.
He was a very political writer, and Till Death, it was a very political show. It felt very real. It felt like the conversations people were having in their sitting rooms and kitchens and bedrooms around the country.
Johnny Spate was doing the most difficult thing, which is treading the line of irony, really, in which you have to be careful that you don't write characters that are so awful that a percentage of your audience think, I like this guy. Finally, there's a man on television speaking the truth.
The ingenious thing about Spate is that he'll put a couple of things that would just tickle the nation's conscience, and so you'll be laughing with him too, because he'll say things that people felt but daren't say. But on the whole, yeah, you were laughing at him.
The tricky question of whether the audience was laughing at Alf Garnett or with him was addressed by Johnny Spate himself in a 1973 interview with Michael Parkinson.
I often wonder about Garnett. Was he a throwback to your childhood, or is he a discernible character that you see around you?
I see him around me all the time, not only in the East End, I see him in the middle classes, the upper classes. I think there's too many Garnetts around, far too many ignorant, bigoted people.
Johnny Spate did not escape criticism when Till Death Us Do Part was broadcast. Mary Whitehouse and the Clean Up TV campaign were not amused by Alf Garnett. However, Mary wasn't troubled so much by his shocking views as by his shocking language.
Today's post brings a flood of letters bitterly criticising remarks made in the previous week's Till Death Us Do Part.
All of them, I think, objecting to the blasphemy. The reason why God and the Virgin Mary haven't had any more children except Jesus Christ was perhaps because they were on the pill.
People who pontificate about things like Alf Garnett, we shouldn't let him go on television saying it. They themselves are never affected by it, but they believe that everybody else is. They're speaking on behalf of people they don't know, and they're assuming the audience is idiots, or of course the audience are smarter than anybody who sets themselves up as an arbiter of what should or shouldn't be allowed to be said on television.
Johnny Spate responded to the criticism from Mary Whitehouse in the most powerful way he could, by making Alf Garnett her #1 fan.
You want to read something a bit edifying, something a bit educative.
Educative?
Yeah.
Well, what are you reading anyway? Mickey Spillane?
No, not Mickey Spillane. Mrs. Whitehouse, isn't it? Mrs. Mary Whitehouse.
And the thing about Alf Garnett, he was weak. He was vulnerable, and his way of dealing with that was to attack, was to apport blame to immigrants, or and it was a big political statement at the time. But I think the thing about these monster characters, who sometimes will say the most ridiculous things, the important thing is they don't get away with it.
You're Jewish, aren't you? I ain't not Jewish! You are! You know you are! Listen, they all know you're around this area. Hey, and listen, and your grandfather's name was Solly Diamond. Lies! It's lies! Lies, not lies!
Race has probably moved on in the last half century more than quite a few other attitudes. And so the attitude to race then looks bad, you know, but it doesn't look as bad as Spike Milligan and Eric Sykes in Curry and Chips.